newspapers, and for that I'm joined by Elena Casas. Hello, Elena. Now, Laurent Gbagbo sent to The Hague, the International Criminal Court. What are the papers making of that?
Well, is the ICC, the International Criminal Court, a useful tool of international justice, or is it a cosy club that allows a few lawyers to get very rich? That's what The Economist is asking in an article in this week's magazine, and it's interesting because it makes quite a powerful case for why Laurent Gbagbo, they say, should have been tried in an Ivorian court, where he would have looked more accountable to the Ivorian people, a lot of whom have been saying that this just doesn't look fair. They don't see people on Alassane Ouattara's side being hauled up in front of The Hague. So with such a difficult situation, to try and create a balanced sense of justice and allow the people to see justice be done. The Economist reckons he should have been tried in the Ivory Coast. They take the example of Congo, where apparently they've got travelling courts to try people who've been accused of human rights abuses in front of their victims, allow the victims to testify and make it look like accountable to the local people. They say that seems to be working a great deal better than the half a dozen Congolese war crime suspects who've been hauled off to The Hague. Lots of trials there have been going on for years and no one has actually been convicted, and since it was founded in 2002. So they say it does seem like quite a gravy train for some international lawyers, whereas a lot of people in Africa who were victims of those war crimes don't really see what difference it's making to them.
Now, one of our top stories today, Hillary Clinton's visit to Burma.
Yes, why is she really visiting, asks a piece in the Daily Beast. They reckon it's at least as much to do with China and the international balance of power between the United States and China, their need to show that they've got a presence in Asia, as it is about trying to give some credibility or encourage the democratic reforms in Burma. But she is criticised by some Burmese dissidents in that piece for giving the Burmese regime more credibility than maybe it deserves, because, of course, it's a good PR coup for them to have her visit. Some other dissidents, the journalist talks to in that article, says that, well, maybe this will help the country open up more internationally and therefore it's good for her to be there. They say if Aung San Suu Kyi is prepared to go along with these democratic reforms now, maybe they all should. But there's another interesting piece in the New York Times. Their correspondent has been to a remote Burman village where the people have no plumbing and electricity. They still live in really grinding poverty, and the words Hillary Clinton or democracy means nothing to them. The journalist says for them, the poorest in Burma, who the government said they were going to improve the lives of, none of this reform has made any difference.
And what are the British papers making of that massive strike in the UK yesterday?
Look at this Sun front page, the not very general strike they've gone with as a headline. They're using the Prime Minister David Cameron's quote yesterday when he called it a damp squib. That's in a pretty sharp contrast to the Independent's front page. They say the public sector walked out. The day the public sector walked out is their headline. They've got thousands of people on that front page. And over at The Guardian, they've quoted union statistics saying that as many as 2 million people could have participated. Their headline is Big Squeeze, Warning over Incomes as Britain walks out on strike. So why such contrasting pictures? That it hardly seems to have been the same strike in the different papers. There's a nice analysis in The Guardian about how both the government and the unions try and manipulate public opinion and the papers to try and change, how many people turned out. They say the main issues of the strike have been left to one side here, but also that the government can't both have its cake and eat it. They can't say on the one hand that the strike cost £500 million and on the other hand that it was a damp squib, as you can see in their cartoon there, where you've got one rather angry-looking David Cameron calling the strike as the height of irresponsibility, and next to him you've got another David Cameron looking rather more droopy, saying it was a damp squib. You've got to make up your mind, says the caption.
Finally, very briefly, a little bit of good news for those unemployed in the UK.
Yes, if you were to find yourself unemployed in the UK anytime soon, The Telegraph has got some quite interesting news. If you've ever fancied yourself as James Bond, they reckon if you can decipher this rather complicated-looking grid of numbers and letters, then the intelligence service GCHQ might give you a job interview. It doesn't say if guns, gadgets and beautiful women will be involved, but it does look pretty complex, as you can see there.
It does indeed. OK, thank you very much for that look at the international newspapers, Elena Casas. Now, a reminder of our top stories.